Good evening, Africa. Africa, hamjambo, bonsoir, salam alaikum, rahmatullah ta'ala wa barakatuh. Boa noite. I am delighted to have opportunity today to stand before you as the son of Africa. I was born in Kenya, but I'm told that my grandparents came from the Sudan. I am a father of 4, a grandfather of 5, and a husband of 1 that I know of. I am an engineer by profession, and I have been an academic. I have also been a public servant. I've been a member of parliament. I've also been a prime minister and also leader of opposition. In those capacities, I've tried to do my best, and I've gained a lot of experience in terms of management of public affairs. I stand here as an Pan-Africanist and an Afro-optimist. 2 months ago, that is on the 21st of October, this year, we were here in Addis Ababa. We had been invited as members of the families of the founding fathers of the African Union to come and witness the reopening of the Africa Hall. That's the hall where the OAU was launched in 1963. And we're happy to be here with Madam Ambassador Konjit, who was there as a young girl at that time. It is now 61 years since the launch of the Organization of African Unity. And at that time, if you read the speeches of the founding fathers on that day, they were very passionate, and all of them talked about African unity. Where there was a difference was, when do we achieve this unity? There are those who, under the school of thought, that the unity now. And those who said, no, we need to be gradual in this. Let us first build the building blocks, the regional unions, which will eventually translate into formation of the African Union as a whole. But now we have come up, they came up 50 years later with Vision 2063, which now hopes to get Africa united, one union government by 2030,
Excellency,
and move on.
take your seats. We are about to start the opening ceremony. Thank you very much. Thank you for your understanding.
I say that I have the experience. I've been part of this movement for changing the continent. We know that some achievements have been made. Africa is now completely liberated, but there's still work to do.
Tell them to bring
and
water.
I believe that I have what it takes to get us where we want to be. In the field of health, in the field of value addition to the abundant wealth that we have on the continent, in the field of trade, African trade. I have acted as the African Union High Representative on Infrastructure. And in this, I know that we have very comprehensive programs in PIDA, Program for Infrastructure Development of the Continent. What remains is action. And what I want to promise the African people is that I am going to lead from the front to to ensure that we achieve the visions of the founding fathers of our continent. I thank you.
Merci infiniment.
Thank you very much, the candidate from Kenya, Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. Now we're going to listen to His Excellency Randra Mandrato from Madagascar.
Excellence,
Excellencies, distinguished guests, to this very important event for the African people. As you can see, we are 3 candidates, not 2 candidates, like you see on social media. And we are standing in front of you today to convince you of how serious we are and how seriously we're going to work towards the African Union involvement. So who am I? I am one out of 1.2 billion Africans. Just like you, I started from very humble beginnings, from the very beginning. I was a young consultant. I was a researcher in microfinance sector, and I traveled across many African capitals, about 41 countries in the year 1989. Just like you, it was difficult for me to find a job, but I did find a job which was at the level of my capacity. And just like you, I actually built my career based on my conviction that each African citizen can actually survive. And just like you, today I am standing before you because I believe that I have the confidence and the trust of the president of Madagascar, and I am proud. I am proud that I was actually supported by my country. Just like you, I've actually come a long way, and I have actually gotten to this level where I have the trust of my government. I was Minister of the Economy in my country because that is my specialty. I was also Minister of Foreign Affairs, and I'm here today standing before you to talk about Africa. Africa is actually the second dynamic economic region in the world, and is actually making progress. And things are changing in our favor. And recently I read about the funding of the African Development Bank, funding several projects in Africa. And this is quite promising for the continent. The World Bank also has increased its envelope, funding 75 countries, 75 less developed countries. And I also think that we have funding for small states. Small states, that's not a pejorative term, but there is an idea that I want to share with you. Africa is moving, first of all, the states that are actually seeing a 3.4% economic growth per year, but I think we should do more than that. And then we have our own house. Here we are, the African Union, which is our home. And what I have noticed is that there is an Africa which is actually moving forward, which is a dynamic Africa, and then there is the African Union, which doesn't really have the capacity for it to move forward. I am here before you today because I think it is indispensable and it is a must that those who want to have the quality, competence, conviction, of course, today, I think that I have those qualities, and I hope that I've been able to convince you. Thank you very much.
Very much, Your Excellency Richard Randyamandreto from Madagascar. And now, ladies and gentlemen, this officially brings us to the beginning of our debate, where we move into the first round of questions. But before then, allow us to reiterate the rules and the guidelines for you, our esteemed candidates. You each have 4 minutes to answer the questions that will be posed, and you will each answer the absolute same question. Your Excellencies, with respect and humility, if you surpass the 4-minute mark, myself or my colleague will have to interrupt your response. And this eventually brings us to this moment, ladies and gentlemen, where my colleague and I will open the envelope for the first round of questions.
Thank you, Anita. Merci.
Thank you very much, Anita, and thank you very much to our candidates who have just introduced themselves to yourselves, members of this public. As my sister has just reminded us, we are going to open, ladies and gentlemen, the first round of questions. We are going to remind all of us that the questions were drafted in English and in French. They were drafted by an independent panel. The envelopes were handed over.
Your Excellency Dr. Abiy Ahmed, Prime Minister of Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia and host of the 38th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of the Union, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Your Excellency Mr. Musa Faki Mahamat, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Your Excellency Mohamed Abbas, President of the State of Palestine, Your Excellency Mr. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Excellency Honorable Mia Montri, Prime Minister of Barbados and Chairperson of the Caribbean Community, Your Excellency Dr. Adesina Akinomi, President of the African Development Bank, Excellencies, First Ministers here present, Your Excellency Dr. Monique Sazabagana, Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Your Excellencies, Commissioners of the African Union Commission, Your Excellency Abdul Hassam Jacob Aziz, Deputy Secretary General of the League of Arab States, Your Excellencies, Ambassadors here present, Heads of African Union organs and regional economic communities and mechanisms. I also recognize the presence of our partners, members of the diplomatic corps, members of the press, and all distinguished delegates. All protocols observed. May I now kindly call the Excellency Chairperson of African Union to call this meeting to order. Your Excellency, you have the floor. Thank you.
Excellence, Dr. Abiy Ahmed, Premier ministre de la République démocratique d'Éthiopie, notre hôte, honorable chef d'État et de gouvernement, chers collègues, Excellence Moussa Faki Mohamed, président de la Commission de l'Union africaine, je souhaite une chaleureuse bienvenue à tous les chefs d'État et de gouvernement et les hauts représentants des États membres et à nos distingués invités. Je voudrais aussi exprimer notre appréciation pour votre présence. Je suis heureux de déclarer ouverts les travaux de la 38e session ordinaire de la conférence de l'Union africaine. Et pour commencer, mesdames et messieurs, je vous invite à vous lever pour observer une minute de silence à la suite de la disparition d'un grand combattant pour la liberté, Monsieur Samu Nujoma, père fondateur de la Namibie. Donc je vous remercie. Merci. Je souhaite maintenant inviter le protocole de la Commission à nous décliner le déroulement de la cérémonie d'ouverture.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, may I humbly call all of you to rise for the African Union Anthem. Thank you. Your Excellency Muhammad Wil Sheikh Al Ghazwani, President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania and Chairperson of the African Union. Your Excellency Dr. Abiy Ahmed, Prime Minister of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia. Your Excellencies, heads of states and governments of African Union member states. Your Excellency Musa Faki Mohammed, Chairperson of the African Union Commission. Your Excellency Mr. Mahmoud Abbas Abu Mazin, President of the State of Palestine. Your Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations. Your Excellency Maya Moore Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados. Your Excellencies, distinguished former presidents here present, Honorable Fairest Ladies here present, Your Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, Your Excellency Dr. Monique Nzanza Baganwa, the Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Excellencies, Commissioners, and all the leadership of the Commission, Excellencies, Ambassadors, members of the Permanent Representatives Committee, Your Excellency Mina Wamakela, Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA, Bekele Thomas, Chief Executive Officer of the African Union Development Agency, AUDA-NIPAD, Your Excellency Dr. Jan Kaseya, Director General of the Africa CDC, Your Excellency Ambassador Marie-Antoinette Roscatre, Chief Executive Officer of the African Peer Review Mechanism, APRM, Your Excellency Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs of the Republic of South Africa, former Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Your Excellencies, heads of United Nations specialized agencies and international organizations here present, سعادة نائب الأمين العام لجامعة الدول العربية ممثل الأمين العام, Your Excellency Luis Moshikiu Abo, Secretary General of the International Organization of La Francophonie, Your Excellency Dr. Warkena Yibihu, Executive Secretary of the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD, Your Excellencies, heads of COMISA, ECOWAS, SINSAT, EAC, ECAS, SADC, and UMMA, Your Excellency Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, President of the African Development Bank Group, ceremony of the 38th Ordinary Session of the AU Assembly of Heads of States and Governments being held today at the Nelson Mandela Hall, the African Union headquarters in Addis Ababa, the capital of Africa. Addis Ababa, a vibrant city that has been at the heart of the Pan-African diplomacy and multilateralism, stands as a symbol of Africa's unity and progress. As a host nation of the African Union, Ethiopia plays a crucial role in fostering continental dialogue and advancing African integration. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen,
the 38th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of Heads of States and Governments of the African Union holds significant importance as it will oversee the elections of the chairperson and the deputy chairperson of the African Union Commission. Over the past years, the African Union has made remarkable progress in conflict resolution, mediation, and peacekeeping efforts, contributing to greater stability across the continent. Economic transformation has been further strengthened through the African Continental Free Trade Area and accession to the G20, contributing towards the implementation of Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, having said so, the program of today's opening ceremony will stand as follows. We will have a statement by His Excellency Dr. Abiy Ahmed, Prime Minister of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, followed by a statement by His Excellency Musa Faki Mohammed, Chairperson of the African Union Commission. A statement by His Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations. Have a statement by His Excellency Mahmoud Abbas, President of the State of Palestine. Then His Excellency Mahmoud will Sheikh Al-Ghazwani, President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania and Chairperson of the African Union, will make his opening remarks. Immediately after that, we will call the Dean of African Ambassadors in Ethiopia to introduce the new Bureau, members of the African Union Assembly, following which we shall have the handover ceremony for the Chairperson of the African Union. Then we will go to the launch of the African Union theme of the year, Justice for Africans and People of African Descent through Reparations. Without any further ado, I have the great honor and privilege to invite His Excellency Dr. Abiy Ahmed, Prime Minister of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, to deliver his statement. Your Excellency, the floor is yours. Your Excellency.
Your Excellency, President Mohammed Ould, outgoing Chairperson of the African Union, Your Excellency, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Your Excellency Musa Faki Mohammed, outgoing Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Your Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, distinguished ministers, ambassadors, diplomats, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Ethiopia, the cradle of Pan-Africanism and a proud champion of African unity and freedom. It is an honor to stand before you today as we reflect on the immense potential we hold, not just as individual nations, but as a united and dynamic continent. In a world marked by rapid change and multiple challenges, we find ourselves at a crossroads of uncertainty and opportunity. This moment calls upon us to strengthen our collective resolve, embrace resilience, and foster unity across Africa. The theme for this year's assembly calls on us to heal the scars of historical injustice and overcome lingering trauma that has long hindered our progress. The demand for reparations is not about charity or financial aid. It is a call for justice. It seeks to restore the dignity of millions and heal the deep scars of poverty, inequality, and discrimination. It demands an end to the systematic exploitation of our wealth, resources, and opportunities. It also calls for a transformative process that acknowledges past harms and takes bold steps to right the wrongs caused upon us, upon society across the continent. Words of every human being. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, to achieve lasting peace, justice, and prosperity, we must rise above the geopolitical tensions and the historical divisions imposed upon us by colonial borders. By fostering solidarity among all of our nations and embracing a shared destiny, we can pool our resources and talents to unlock our continent's full potential. Africa's cultural, ethnic, and linguistic diversity is a source of pride, and we must build inclusive governance and equitable conflict resolution, diplomacy, and peace building must remain at the heart of our efforts. By championing African solutions to African challenges, we can secure lasting peace and stability. Let us celebrate our achievements in politics, science, economics, and arts. Strategic initiatives such as the African Continental Free Trade Area give us the tools to boost intra-Africa trade, reduce external dependency, and achieve self-reliance. With Africa's large and dynamic use, abundant natural resources, and growing technological innovations, we have all the means to ensure sustainable growth. The rapid advancement of artificial intelligence, particularly generative AI, offers unprecedented opportunities to transform our economies and societies. By collaborating in AI, fintech, renewable energy, and mobile technology, we can address shared challenges such as climate change, infrastructure gaps, and public health crisis. Africa's rich and diverse data sets are essential for training robust and inclusive AI models. This highlights the importance of African representation in shaping future. These advancements, it's essential to protect our data sovereignty, prevent digital exploitation, and develop homegrown AI solutions that reflect African values and contexts. As our data sets grow, so when used responsibly, AI can be a powerful tool. Africa must actively participate in the global technology race to ensure we are competitive players in the evolving digital landscape, while also ensuring we benefit equitably from this technological revolution.
Furthermore, Africa's voice on global issues must grow stronger, ensuring a say in shaping governance frameworks and other much-needed reforms in the global order. By empowering grassroots movements, youth networks, and educational programs focused on digital literacy and technological innovation, we can inspire the next generation. This will ensure Africa stands not just as a beneficiary of a global advancement, but as a key contributor in shaping the future of humanity. Excellencies, the opportunities before us are immense, guided by a vision of vibrant democracy, sustainable economic growth, rich cultural heritage, social progress, and a deep commitment to environmental regeneration. To realize this goal, we have laid out a pragmatic roadmap rooted in the transformative principles of Madamar. Madamar, an Amharic term loosely translated as synergy, is our guiding philosophy. It is a homegrown ideology that promotes prosperity, unity, sovereignty, security, and national dignity. At its core, Madamar encourages social and economic advancement, celebrates diversity, and nurtures a spirit of community grounded in Ethiopia's rich culture, spirituality, and values. Reflecting on the progress of the past 5 years and building on the vision of Madamar, Ethiopia has made remarkable strides. Despite inheriting a nation deeply divided along ethnic lines, burdened by substantial debt, and facing numerous internal challenges, we have moved forward with determination. At the same time, we navigated a complex and ever-changing regional and international landscape. Yet, through resilience and cooperation, we continue to move closer to the realization of our shared vision of prosperity. Our achievements speak for themselves. Allow me to share a few highlights. We have reformed our political system, transforming into an inclusive multi-party framework that reflects the diversity of our nation. To deepen these reforms and foster cohesion, reconciliation, and peace, we are undertaking a national dialogue. On the economic front, we have built a resilient and diverse economy. Over the past 5 years, we have doubled our cultivated land, increasing crop production to nearly 700 million quintals, with the wheat accounting for 40% of this total. These efforts have strengthened food security and driven rural development. Today, Ethiopia is the largest wheat producer in Africa. Thank you. Through collective efforts, we have reduced external debt by over 50%, double both GDP and GDP per capita, and tripled government revenue in 5 years, with an 8.1% growth reported in the most recent fiscal year. Across the country, our major cities are evolving into dynamic, culturally rich, and sustainable hubs. In education, we have established 40,000 kindergartens and primary schools to boost early childhood education. Additionally, we have launched a program to train 5 million coders to strengthen our digital economy. Furthermore, we strive to honor our heritage by restoring national sites, developing tourist destinations, and reclaiming cultural artifacts, fulfilling our duty as the guardians of our nation's treasures. These accomplishments reflect the unwavering spirit and resilience of the Ethiopian people and underscore our firm commitment to advancing Ethiopia's future.
With its focus on unity, cooperation, innovation, and shared progress, Maddamar can serve as a guiding framework for our Pan-African agenda. By embracing its principles, we can forge a path toward a more just, equitable, and prosperous future for all Africans. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let us march forward with determination, harnessing the limitless potential of our continent and its people. The time is now to claim our future, build a legacy of equality and prosperity, and secure dignity for all. Let us be the generation that unites and our diaspora in a shared vision of justice, prosperity, and peace. To conclude, I thank our outgoing chairperson, President Mohammed Ould, for his leadership and representing our organization on the global stage. Allow me to also warmly congratulate our newly chairperson, President Joao Lorenzo, and wish him success during his tenure. I would also like to take a moment to express my heartfelt gratitude to His Excellency as we bid farewell to His Excellency Musa Faki. It is with great pleasure that I extend a warm welcome to our incoming chairperson of the African Union Commission here in Ethiopia. I am confident that under his leadership, we will continue to make great strides toward achieving our collective goals. I wish him every success during his mandate. Thank you for your attention, and I wish us all a fruitful summit. God bless Ethiopia. God bless Africa. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your statement, and thank you for the generous hospitality extended to our Excellencies, heads of states and governments, as well as distinguished delegates. Thank you. And now allow me to invite with great honor and pleasure His Excellency Musa Faki Mohammed, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, to deliver his statement. Your Excellency.
Excellences, Monsieur Mohamed Ould Cheikh Al-Ghazouani, Président de la République islamique de Mauritanie, Président en exercice de l'Union africaine, Excellence Dr Abiy Ahmed, Premier ministre de la République d'Éthiopie, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs d'État, de gouvernement et de délégation, Excellences, Monsieur Mahmoud Abbas, Président de l'État de Palestine, ma très chère sœur amie Mia, Premier ministre de Barbados, Excellence Monsieur Antonio Guterres, secrétaire général des Nations Unies, Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres, Dr Nkosazana Zuma, ancienne présidente de la Commission de l'Union africaine, Madame la vice-présidente, Mesdames et Messieurs les commissaires, Mesdames et Messieurs les secrétaires généraux et exécutifs des communautés économiques régionales et mécanismes régionaux, Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs exécutifs des organes et institutions spécialisées de l'Union africaine, Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs des missions diplomatiques, distingués invités, Mesdames et Messieurs. C'est à la fois avec un grand honneur et un immense plaisir que je m'adresse à vous aujourd'hui pour la dernière fois en ma qualité de président de la Commission de l'Union africaine. Je voudrais tout d'abord, puisque nous sommes encore au début de l'année nouvelle 2025, présenter à vos excellences, vos familles et vos peuples, au nom de tous les personnels de l'Union africaine, mes meilleurs vœux de santé, de prospérité et de succès. Je voudrais aussi exprimer mes sincères remerciements aux présidents en exercice avec lesquels j'ai successivement travaillé ces 8 dernières années. J'ai nommé dans l'ordre de leur présidence Alpha Condé, Paul Kagame, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, Cyril Ramaphosa, Antoine Félix Tshisekedi, Macky Sall, Azali Assoumani et Mohamed Ould-Cheikh Al-Ghazouani. En cet instant de remembrance, je ne peux oublier le président Idriss Déby Itnou, paix à son âme, qui, en africaniste convaincu, a eu l'initiative de ma candidature à la tête de la Commission et qui s'est investi sans compter pour un tel destin pour moi. Sa mort tragique a été ma plus atroce douleur de ce double mandat. Excellences, Mesdames, Messieurs, 8 ans se sont écoulés depuis mon élection fin janvier 2017 comme président de la Commission de l'Union africaine. En ces moments chargés d'historicité, de signification et de symboles, je voudrais m'acquitter du devoir moral de vous présenter les grandes lignes du bilan de ce double mandat. Grâce à ces parcours, je me suis profondément imprégné à la fois de ce qui fait la grandeur et le rayonnement de notre continent, de notre organisation continentale, ainsi que des pesanteurs et limites diverses ayant entraîné le rythme de nos cadences. J'ai sillonné ce beau et fantastique continent. J'éprouve une profonde fierté d'avoir visité au moins une fois.
We must not absolutely abuse of your precious time. A consolidated report of our achievements and an annual report have been distributed to you in accordance with our regulations. Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the rapid and intense geopolitical upheavals that have characterized the international context during my 2 terms of office have both violent and destabilizing manifestations. The sudden deterioration of the health situation following the outbreak of COVID-19 was unfortunately accompanied by major shocks and profound economic and diplomatic turbulence. For Africa, this resulted in an increase in the debt burden, a decline in public and private investment flows, violence and the prevalence of some African conflicts, the collapse of Pan-Africanism and the chains of African solidarity, manifestations of the obsolescence of African institutions, external appetites in Africa, obvious deficiencies in governance and leadership in Africa and even in the world, and the crisis of multilateralism after the Second World War, and so on, and so on. The Russia-Ukraine in February 2022 further darkened this picture, announcing a global geopolitical reconfiguration. A split emerged that resurrected a form of bipolarity, which in political imaginations brings to mind the theoretically outdated reality of the Cold War. Deep uncertainties about the sustainability of peace and international cooperation have poisoned the minds, darkened the conscience, and reinforced the pessimism, selfishness, and mercantile pragmatism. The consequences of this war deeply affected Africa, which imported most of its cereal consumption and agricultural inputs from these two countries, that is Russia and Ukraine. The specter of food and health insecurity hung over many of our countries, many of which continue to suffer from their structural fragilities. Excellency, Mr. Chairman, heads of state and government, ladies and gentlemen, in the Middle East, the brotherly people of Palestine suffered and continues to suffer one of the worst injustices in the history of mankind, the horrible and unjust war which completely destroyed everything in Gaza and Palestine, particularly in Gaza, to deprive this people of its fundamental rights to independence, peace, existence, and to life, in an indescribable shame for the whole of mankind. In spite of all this, these valiant Palestinian people remained stoic, and the African Union remained firmly by the side of the Palestinian people. I want to express to our brother, Abu Mazen, Mahmoud Ahmadan, our solidarity. This apocalyptic landscape that Palestine, the Gaza Strip, and its population, in particularly after more than a year of war, destroying all forms of life and property, continues to unfold in almost total silence of the powers of the world, except for the call by some for the systematic deportation of Palestinians from their lands. It is really adding insult to injury. This unprecedented tragedy weighs heavily despite the ceasefire and the release of hostages and prisoners facilitated by Qatar, Egypt, and the USA on the universal conscience and deeply questions our humanity. The stronghold of increased, stifling, dehumanized globalization does not leave Africa outside the hegemonic struggles that are taking place far from its land. On the contrary, the continent is suffering from the excesses and fragmentations reflected in proximity conflicts, barely veiled support from external powers from the warring parties on the continent, the expansion of terrorism and violent extremism, the continuation of the devastating war in the Sudan, in Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo, the divisions of Libya, whose reconciliation charter was signed and adopted yesterday, and I would like to congratulate you, President Sassou Nguesso. Tensions of all kinds in the Sahel, in the Lake Chad Basin, in the Gulf of Guinea, in Mozambique, in the Horn of Africa and the Great Lakes region are another part of the unsmoldering string of African crises. The flow of political, economic, environmental refugees and other internally displaced persons is exacerbating the already fragile security, food, and health situation in many member states. It is this seriously degraded global and regional context that we have been facing over the past 8 years of the development of our action. Excellency, Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, heads of state and government, ladies and gentlemen, the institutional reform of our union, which began in 2017, aimed at establishing the optimal condition to guarantee the efficient pursuit of the programs included in our strategic doctrinal guiding compass Agenda 2063 for the purpose of better resistance to the challenges that were identified. In this regard, the reconfiguration of the leadership, a staff performance evaluation process, closer cooperative relationship between the African Union and the regional economic communities and the regional mechanisms enacted by a new protocol, the institutionalization of a coordination summit dedicated to integration, the establishment of the technical groups R10 and N15, responsible to ensuring the quality of human resources recruited and compliance with the golden rules of budgetary, financial and accounting management principles of the African Union have been the salient features of this reform. And but is without any complacency, we'll have a new institutional map of the Union. I'm here stressing three of these organs: the Pan-African Parliament, the Peace and Security Council, and the Permanent Representatives Committee. The overall movement of the reform, with its shadows and lights, confirms its relevance and its necessary progressive nature to be deployed over the long term. It is a requirement for the perpetual adaptation of the structures of our union to the developments that characterize the world. I would like to thank President Paul Kagame and President William Ruto for their remarkable efforts to move this reform forward. Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, an assessment of the first 10-year implementation plan of Agenda 26.3 covering the period 2014 to 2023 reveals the sectoral progress made in our march towards building the Africa that we want. It is crucial to learn the real lesson and make the appropriate subsequent adjustments. In the field of health, it is a holistic approach translated on the ground into actions crowned with success. With the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, Africa CDC established itself as the most effective instrument in the fight of all diseases. The worrying issue of health financing continues to be a source of concern for us. Two mechanisms for financing universal health coverage and combating malnutrition on the continent have been designed. Thanks to the African Veterinary Vaccine Center, PANVAC, whose new vaccine production laboratory was inaugurated in February 2024, significant progress has been made in the areas of livestock, animal health, and socio-economic development. The African Medicines Agency, AMA, has begun setting up its headquarters in Kigali and its activities on the launching pad. The traditional medicine has benefited from the development of two 10-year plans of action, the last one running from 2025 to 2035. The field of education has been driven by the desire to design a new educational system according to the requirements of a world where the major challenge has now become competition around scientific and technological innovation, and now by artificial intelligence. It is in line with this spirit that diverse and complementary strategies have been developed, notably during the Nouakchott conference in 2024, initiated by the current chairman, Mauritania, in cooperation with the African Union Commission and other partners, including UNICEF and UNESCO in particular. The centrality of gender and youth issues have been affirmed. The special envoys for women and youth have established themselves well in the institutional universe of the leadership of the organization. Throughout the 8 years of these two terms, many other crews have engaged the attention they deserved due to their importance for the socio-economic development of Africa. Whether it is our vision on mining issues, the comprehensive agriculture program and the blue economy, the development of infrastructure and energy, climate change with adaptation and climate resilience of the continent, regional integration through the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, the effective operationalization of the Peace Fund, which has exceeded the set target of $400 million, the treatment of humanitarian crisis of which Africa is the epicenter, with the establishment of the African Humanitarian Agency, the strengthening of the visibility of the African Union through our partnership with the United Nations, all have been at the center of our collective endeavor. I would like to seize this opportunity to pay special tribute to a major architect of this partnership. I'm here referring to Antonio Guterres, a great friend of Africa. Thank you, Antonio. The membership of the African Union, the G20, and the BRICS, of which several African countries are members, have crowned this visibility. On all these issues, the specialized structure of the African Union and the member states have carried out in-depth discussions and outlined clear prospects for some and given concrete form to many others. Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, a few months ago I sent to Your Excellencies a letter relating to some urgent issues at the heart of the future of our Union and its capacity to attain as best as possible our objectives. I am here thinking first of the Peace and Security Council, which I mentioned earlier on, and its role should be carried out on the basis of texts that govern its function, its operation, from which it draws the strength and legitimacy to design, supervise the pressing issues of our collective security and impose, if necessary, the required sanctions. It is very regrettable that its decisions are sometimes contrary to our own principles, and when they are not, often remain dead letters. The decision of this central continental organ cannot be considered in a casual manner, nor by bias the concept and practice of these regional economic communities in the name of the hackneyed principle of subsidiarity interpreted in a self-interest and partisan manner. The mentioning of the PSC brings forth the issue of unconstitutional changes of government. In this regard, I mention in the said letter that we have only two options henceforth: either abandon the principles that currently govern this issue or apply them seriously, notwithstanding the fact that we can revise them, adapt them to the new realities. I think for our own credibility, we should continue to establish these principles like a litany while trampling on them and accepting their flagrant and constant violation. There is nothing that eats more into our credibility than such an attitude, which has recently led to a real distrust in the rules and principles and weakened integration in part of the continent. I am here mentioning the persistent and paralyzing slump of our unbearable division in terms of representation in relation to our so-called strategic partnerships. I drew attention, and I draw again attention here, to choose one of the two options that are presented to us and which I presented in clear terms in my letter. I had also mentioned the recurring issue of the financing of our organization, which paradoxically contrasts with the continuing trends of multiplication of organs without any concern for how to finance them. An independent organization and guardian of our freedom and sovereignty cannot be built with the finances and resources by others. I had also raised the depriving reduction of the initiatives of the chairperson of the African Union Commission and called for its harmonization with the legal and customary obligations that are now imposed on him. In short, the sense of my correspondence is very simple and maybe brutal. It is the question of placing our organization worthily or not before a terrible combination of factors of complexity. These are all the problems that you are facing today that I wanted to raise very modestly in my letter. Are we finally going to open our eyes to the fate of our organization, or are we continue to let it lament and moan? Excellency Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is a commonplace truth today to affirm that the concepts and legal instruments serving as a framework of analyzing the dynamics of contemporary international politics are outdated. They have lost their both structuring and explanatory virtue of current global phenomena. Such an observation explains why the debates today focus on the modalities for the advent of a new global economic and political governance. Africa cannot remain silent and inactivity. It must imperatively throw itself into the battle to carve out its own place in the configuration currently being designed. It is not easy. It will require ingenuity, creativity, method, and courage. More generally, this will require real redemption for an awakening of the consciousness and conscience of the soul of Pan-Africanism, that of our awareness of our Africanity, that of the pride of our Africanity, that of the commitment to our Africanity, that of the rejection of our depersonalization and our nihilistic servility of our identity and our being. This is what African youth are calling for us to do. They are the majority in all our states and are becoming increasingly demanding. Their voices are resonating louder and louder thanks to the new forms of communication that amplify all expressions. African youth are constantly challenging us and putting us on trial for being out of step with their aspirations, which are that of an Africa that is open to itself, united, sovereign in its policies and choices, standing and interdependent. This solidarity has always been our lifeline in the fight against colonialism and apartheid and the completion of our independence. We have just paid tribute to the memory of a great combatant, Sam Nujoma. This should bring something and click something in our minds. Our solidarity should galvanize our consciences, our wills and our intelligence to lead us to a more promising common destiny. There are no other new path for our future than to listen and to give substance to the aspirations of our youth, our fellow citizens and our diaspora. Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I am leaving my office definitively in a few days. I confess that I feel overwhelmed by a sweet feeling of freedom that allows me to say a few words from the bottom of my heart. The first is a word of deep gratitude to Your Excellencies for the trust that you have placed in me by electing me for 2 successive terms as the chairperson of the African Union Commission. You must rest assured that I have measured and I continue to measure all the dimensions of this trust and the heavy weight of subsequent gratitude and acknowledgement. The second word concerns the other one and me. In the other one, I'm thinking of our partners, especially those who have offered a sincere friendship and mutually beneficial cooperation. I want to thank them all and express our gratitude. I am also thinking of you present here, those who have left us also for different reasons. You have realized good and great things, and above all, as far as possible, respected a certain ethic and a line of conduct that we have believed to be consistent with our principles. Please accept my full gratitude. The members of the African Union Commission are the men and women that have worked very often in the shadows with diligence, dedication, discipline, and talent. I would like to pay tribute to them, the tribute that they deserve. The third word relates to my own limitations. I wanted so much to do quickly and better during the 2 terms that you entrusted to me. I know that I have not done everything. Perhaps I underestimated the burden of the task and the weight of the constraints. I know that I may have made mistakes. I should not say perhaps, but I should say certainly I've made mistakes. Maybe here and there, I have weakened and made mistakes and missed opportunities to do better. I would like to apologize and ask forgiveness if my shortcomings have caused any individual or collective harm. The fourth word relates to my feelings at the moment. I am happy to regain my freedom, but I know that we'll also have the nostalgia of the places, the women and men whom I have known, for the Ethiopian people, with their age-old civilization. To you, my brother, dear brother Abiy Ahmed, Amasaganalo. Maybe we'll have time to write the history of all this tangle of feelings and sensations. Finally, my fifth word is that of my oath to continue to think of Africa, to serve Africa, to dream for its youth for whom we have not done enough and for whom we must do a lot, because after all, it is they who count today and more so tomorrow. A final word to you, Mr. President, Chairperson, and Mr. President, dear brother Sheikh Al-Ghazwani, to tell you how much I appreciated your close relation throughout your mandate. You have been a master of wisdom, civic-mindedness, and loftiness, inspiring in all respects. To you, Mr. President, and dear brother João Lourenço, and I would like to stress that the quiet strength that you symbolize reassures me about a chairmanship of seriousness and substance. May you both in particular, and all of us, have an active thought for the great prisoner of the Sahel, President Mohamed Bazoum, whose interminable detention is not justified. He must be released unconditionally. I wish full success to our summit. I wish full success to our next leadership. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you for your statement. Thank you for your unwavering commitment. Thank you for dedication towards Africa's peace, development, and unity. Thank you very much. I will now have the honor to invite His Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, to deliver his statement. Your Excellency.
Monsieur le Président de l'Union africaine, Excellences, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. President Mohamed Ould Ghazouani, thank you for your leadership in the outstanding exercise of your mandate. Presidente João Lourenço, parabéns e aguardo com expectativa a oportunidade de trabalhar consigo como novo Presidente da União Africana. I also want to give a very special expression of gratitude to the chairperson of the African Union Commission, Moussa Faki, for his 8 years of strong and permanent commitment to multilateralism and impeccable cooperation with the United Nations. Cher Moussa, travailler avec toi est un privilège, un plaisir et un honneur. Excellencies, the partnership between the African Union and the United Nations has never been stronger. Together, we see an Africa booming with hope and possibility. You have a booming, enterprising population, including the largest number of young people in the world. The African continental free trade is poised to turbocharge the region's economy, and calls to address the legacies of colonialism and slavery are growing louder, as reflected in your theme this year, and as reflected in the leadership of so many passionate voices for the liberation of Africa, such as the great Dr. Sam Nujoma of Namibia, whose life we celebrate and whose loss we mourn. The world must never forget that Africa is the victim of two colossal and compounded injustices. First, the profound impact of colonialism and the transatlantic slave trade. The roots stretch back centuries, and the bitter fruit continues to affect Africans and people of African descent to this day. Decolonization alone in itself was not a panacea. Political independence did not free countries from structures based on exploitation and decades of economic, social, and institutional underinvestment. It is high time for reparatory justice frameworks to be put in place. Second, Africa was under colonial domination when today's multilateral system was created, and that injustice endures. Look no further than the United Nations Security Council. There is no excuse that Africa still lacks permanent representation in the 21st century. I will keep working with the African Union and all member states to ensure the representation Africa needs and the justice you deserve, including with 2 permanent members of the Security Council. And we will keep pressing together for an international financial architecture that is no longer outdated, dysfunctional, and unfair. Correcting age-old injustices is essential to address here and now challenges. And the good news is that we have many of the solutions we need. Last year, you helped drive that effort at the United Nations with the Pact for the Future. And I thank Africa for its support that was vital to approve the Pact. Our task now is to make those commitments a reality. South Africa's G20 chairmanship could not come at a better time. Let me point to 4 areas for action. First, we must push for peace, security, and alleviating appalling levels of human suffering. Sudan is being torn apart before our eyes and is now home to the world's largest displacement crisis and famine. As we near the holy months of Ramadan, it is time for an immediate cessation of hostilities. And the international community must come together to stop the flow of weapons and the bankrolling of bloodshed. In the Democratic Republic of the Congolese people have been suffering yet again from a brutal cycle of violence. And the fighting that is raging in South Kivu as a result of the continuation of the M23 offensive threatens to push the entire region over the precipice. Regional escalation must be avoided at all costs. There is no military solution. The deadlock must end, the dialogue must begin, and the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the DRC must be respected. The conclusions of the recent joint EAC-SADC summit offer a way forward, with a renewed call for an immediate ceasefire and new momentum for regional efforts based on the Luanda and Nairobi processes. Now is the time for swift implementation. And you can count on the continued support of the United Nations, including MONUSCO. In the Sahel, the clear and present threat of terrorism is undermining peace, security, and sustainable development. And in Somalia, we are urging predictable funding for the African Union support and stabilization mission, and I hope that our voice will be heard by the Security Council. And as we gather here in Africa, I know all our minds are also very much on Gaza. A resumption of hostilities must be avoided at all costs. The Palestinian people have suffered too much. I welcome efforts by the parties to abide by the ceasefire agreement and urge action for a permanent ceasefire and the release of all hostages. Peace is possible in the Middle East, and that starts with tangible, irreversible, and permanent progress towards the two-state solution, Israel and Palestine, living side by side in peace and security. Excellencies, on all fronts, we stand shoulder to shoulder with the African Union to advance security, stability, human rights, and rule of law. Excellencies, second, we must keep working together to deliver the AU 2063 agenda and the 2030 agenda for sustainable development and drive action on finance. African countries pay up to 8 times more to borrow than developed countries, and 20 are in or at risk of debt distress. The Pact for the Future supports an international financial architecture reform to reflect today's economy, ensuring fair representation and urging effective action on debt relief. And I will stand with Africa as a matter of justice and to right the historic wrongs. Excellencies, third, the climate crisis. Climate disasters are tearing across Africa, destroying lives, upending livelihoods, devastating economies, and inflaming conflict. At the same time, the renewables revolution is unstoppable, and Africa is poised to become a global clean energy powerhouse. Yet, today, Africa receives just 2% of global renewables investment. Realizing Africa's potential requires access to affordable finance, including by implementing the COP29 finance decision fully and on time, and supporting development of a roadmap to realize $1.3 trillion a year. Excellencies, Africa has contributed little to the climate crisis, yet is paying the price with record droughts, floods, and heat. Climate justice requires a massive investment in adaptation, with the international community bearing an enormous responsibility. Developed countries must double adaptation finance, and countries must significantly boost the loss and damage fund. Allow me a note. When the loss and damage fund was created, the pledging conference that took place has allowed for an amount that is equivalent at the highest contract for a basketball player in the United States. It is absolutely necessary to make the Loss and Damage Fund an effective instrument to support developing countries in adaptation. And we also need justice when it comes to your abundant critical minerals. Too often, your countries are plundered, bound to the bottom of value chains as others grow rich on your resources. The work of the United Nations Panel on Critical Energy Transition Minerals is designed to help embed justice, sustainability, and human rights across the value chain. Africa's minerals must benefit Africa's people. Excellences, enfin, nous devons agir dans le domaine des nouvelles technologies, notamment l'intelligence artificielle. Près de 2/3 de la population africaine sont privés d'un accès fiable à l'Internet. Nous avons une responsabilité historique, faire en sorte que l'intelligence artificielle profite à l'humanité tout entière et pas seulement à quelques privilégiés, États et compagnie. Le pacte numérique mondial partage les ambitions du pacte numérique africain. Connectivité universelle, renforcement des capacités et une gouvernance responsable de l'intelligence artificielle. Je présenterai bientôt un rapport sur les modèles innovants de financement volontaire et les initiatives de renforcement des capacités afin d'aider les pays du Sud global à exploiter l'intelligence artificielle pour le bien commun. Ensemble, assurons-nous que les promesses seront tenues. Excellences, l'Union africaine et l'ONU sont unis et déterminés à rendre justice à votre continent sans laisser personne de côté. Nous disposons de bases solides pour aller de l'avant. Alors, ensemble, concrétisons ces engagements. Et permettez-moi de dire une dernière phrase dans ma langue maternelle. Digamos com uma só voz, viva África!
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your statement. We highly appreciate your leadership in strengthening the African Union-United Nations partnership. Thank you. السيدات والسادة أصحاب الفخامة والمعالي، يسعدني ويشرفني أن أرحب اليوم بفخامة السيد الرئيس محمود عباس أبو مازن رئيس دولة فلسطين، فلتتفضلوا مشكورين بإلقاء كلمتكم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فخامة الرئيس محمد ولد الغزواني رئيس جمهورية موريتانيا رئيس القمة
the Republic of Mauritania and the chairperson of the African Union, Excellency Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Mr. Abiy Ahmed, Excellency Moussa Faki, chairperson of the African Union Commission, Excellency Mr. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all of you. At the outset, I wish to extend our congratulations to Excellency President João Lourenço President of the Republic of Angola, for becoming the chairperson of the African Union for the year 2025. We wish him full success. We extend our thanks to His Excellency President Mohammed Ould El Ghazouani for his chairmanship of the previous session of the African Union. I'm very happy to meet once again with you, and on behalf of the Palestinian people, who have a great deal of esteem to the people and the leaders of African states. We are proud of our friendship with them. They have always provided to us a faithful support to our just struggle for freedom and independence. Heads of state and delegation, at the time when we are working with countries in the world and international organizations to consolidate the ceasefire and provide more humanitarian assistance, and at a time when the state of Palestine is fulfilling its mission in the Gaza Strip to assist the refugees and to go back to their areas and to provide the living conditions for our people, and to, as we are preparing for the reconstruction, we hear calls for deporting our people from their lands and affecting the sovereignty of other countries. These calls are meant to distract the world from the war crimes and the genocide and the destruction in Gaza, in addition to the crimes of colonization and the settlers grab land and annexation, in addition to attacks against holy shrines in the occupied territories and Jerusalem. These are of occupation and the gangs of settlers. The aim is to destroy the possibility of a two-state solution for the Palestinian cause. Today, more than 2,300,000 people live in Gaza, including 1,500,000 refugees, 1,500,000 refugees who were forced to leave their country in 1948. They suffered from more than 50 massacres by the terrorist Zionist gangs. The only place they can go back to is their cities and villages from which they were expelled during the Nakba. In implementation of UN Resolution 194, which calls for the return of Palestinian refugees to the cities and the villages from which they were deported, and that they would be compensated for the harm they suffered. We reaffirm our complete rejection for all the calls aimed at deporting the Palestinian people from its land. This will keep the region in the cycle of violence instead of going to peace creation. It is an illusion for people to believe that they can have a new century agreement or to deport our people by occupying our land. In this regard, we hail the positions of the countries that rejected the calls for deporting our people from their land and stood by our side to defend their rights. We highly hail the position of the African Union and its member states in this regard. The Israeli colonial practices mean that we need to have an urgent action by the international community and the Security Council before the forces of radicalism disseminate to kill the two-state solution. Heads of state and delegation, the Palestinian cause is the cause of a people seeking freedom and independence. Our commitment to international legality and the signed agreements, including the implementation of the vision based on a two-state solution, mean that we need to end the Israeli occupation that occupies with military power the land of the state of Palestine and its part of Al-Quds. There is the UN Resolution 338, also UN Resolution 242, Arab Peace Initiative, whose aim is to enable the people of the region to live in peace and security, also in implementation of the consultative opinion of the International Court of Justice, which has stipulated the illegality of occupation and that it should be ended in 12 months. This was decided by the International Court of Justice. There's also the decision by the UN General Assembly and the call for a conference that will take place in Geneva next month. I call upon the AU member states on this occasion to participate in this important conference. Heads of government and delegation, the achievement of peace and security requires from all of us to effectively participate in the global alliance to implement the two-state solution and to support the International Conference for Peace that will take place in the United Nations by the middle of next June. Under the dual chairmanship of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and France. This will be an opportunity to mobilize international resources for the international recognition of the State of Palestine and to obtain our full membership in the United Nations. We have not been able to achieve this because of the vetoes of the United States. Our aim is to implement the two-state solution based on international legality. The holding of the AU summit and the theme of justice through compensation reflects your continuous support to the Palestinian people who are still suffering from the last form of colonization in the world. We are the only ones living under colonization. You lived under this colonization, but you were liberated. Finally, we reiterate our thanks to the African Union and the member states for their continued support to the struggle of the Palestinian people to cherish their freedom and independence. And we wish your summit full success and more prosperity for the African people and their free peoples. Thank you very much for your attention.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد. أصحاب الفخامة والمعالي رؤساء الدول والحكومات.
Heads of state and government, Excellency Abiy Ahmed, Prime Minister of the Federal Republic of Ethiopia, Excellency Musa Faki Mohammed, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Excellency Mahmoud Abbas, President of the State of Palestine, Mrs. Mia Mutli, heads of government and delegation, Excellencies, Ministers, Excellencies, Ambassadors, dear guests. At the outset, I wish to extend my thanks to the government and the people of Ethiopia for the efforts made to hold this summit. We thank them for the support and the hospitality accorded to us in this beautiful city of Addis Ababa, which saw the establishment of our organization as inspired by the founding fathers, to have an Africa that is peaceful and united. I'm very happy to reiterate my thanks to my brothers, the presidents of the member states of the African Union, for the honor bestowed in me for chairing this organization throughout my mandate. I also extend my thanks to the presidents of countries and who are with us to attend this important meeting at the beginning of 2025. This year raises a number of questions. Thank you, Excellencies, heads of government. My chairmanship of the African Union has taken place at an international period that is highly sensitive. This also coincided by our adoption of the second decade plan within the framework of Agenda 2063. It represents a plan for development for member states and the regional economic communities and the various organs of the African Union. By adopting this decade plan, we can see our solid commitment to meet the aspirations of our peoples, to have the Africa that we all want, in spite of the obstacles and in spite of all the challenges. And these challenges are tremendous. When I became fully aware of the volume of the commitment and the responsibility, today our world is witnessing various crises. These are where we have more areas of conflict, and tensions have jeopardized relations between countries.
They have also jeopardized the values on which the world system has been established since the Second World War.
After a particular period of the development of international organizations and our belief in a more just world, the references went back and hopes collapsed, and now there is a revision of the international system in a way and that the contours are not clear. For a number of years, unfortunately, bloodshed continues, many people found themselves in difficult humanitarian situations. The world has witnessed a level of violence unprecedented since the Second World War. Palestine is what Palestine is facing is a good example of this. This global situation is made more complex and complicated by the wars in Africa. These crises, global and continental, have had a negative impact on the efforts of development in our continent, where there are tremendous challenges such as poverty, unemployment, and the weakness of health systems and the weak economic structures, in addition to the impact of climate change, the dissemination of terrorism. All of this is having an impact on peace and security. It is destroying the social fabric of our communities. In my previous speech, I committed myself to work on these challenges, and I worked during my term on respecting the rules and regulations of the African Union. All of this in full harmony with the AU Commission and the regional economic communities and the regional organs. Our aim was to consolidate the efforts of peace and to reach peace on the basis of dialogue by supporting the valuable efforts made by Excellency Ngasso, President Ngasso, at the head of the African High-Level Committee on Libya. I also continued work with President Paul Kagame and President Tshisekedi to deal with the situation in Eastern DRC. In 2024, Mauritania hosted the third meeting to consolidate the peace initiative in Sudan. We also met General Al-Burhan on the 13th and the 14th of January 2025, and the aim was to end the hostilities in Sudan and to protect its peoples and territories. In spite of the efforts made by the Union and the regional economic communities and the member states, the establishment of comprehensive peace in our continent remains to be achieved. Therefore, I call for the implementation of the decisions made by the Malabo decisions in 2022. On the basis of the work of the PSC, and this can be done in at 4 levels: harmonization, financial sustainability. All of this will meet the ongoing security challenges. All of this will enable us the possibility to explore more effective solutions to achieve peace and security. We need to identify the appropriate mechanisms that should enable us to settle the challenges of peace and security. In this context, we need the efforts of each one of us as part of a collective effort in order to meet these challenges. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we gave a great deal of attention to the agenda of development during our term. We endeavored to mobilize resources by organizing or participating in a number of meetings. We organized with His Excellency Samuel Ruto in the Nairobi summit to support the resource mobilization. We consolidated this with our work with President Hassan Ouattara on the occasion of the economic summit held in Abidjan. This represented a landmark in resource mobilization for our organization. The efforts of support have led to renewing the mobilization of resources. We also participated in the work of the to mobilize more resources from Korea for the benefit of development. The volume reached for Africa from $5.5 billion to $10 billion, in addition to $14 billion to finance exports for countries investing in our continent, in addition to the 4th edition of the China-Africa Summit at the level of the heads of state. China declared to devote $50 billion to boost development in our continent. In addition to the efforts made for resource mobilization, we endeavored during our participation in the 7th meeting in Italy and the BRICS meeting in Russia in October. Also in our meeting in Brazil in November 24, in addition to other events, we endeavored to solve the problem of debt by promoting development. We also called for the review of the support and we called for establishing a new charter for financing development that would be more flexible and sustainable and would lead to the mobilization of resources that are commensurate with development. We also called for a better implementation of plans by the multi-party financial organizations for the benefit of development and for to implement our international agenda. In addition to resource mobilization, in order to promote development, we endeavored to turn our resources into an effective and sustainable development that can meet the faced challenges. These challenges have been worsened by the various crises. In this context, and in line with what was indicated, we called for a more flexibility to enable people to access education. In line with the theme for last year, we had this meeting in Mauritania in collaboration with the African Union, a continental meeting on education and employment of youth. This meeting was held in Nouakchott. The aim was to integrate youth and employment and to youth represent the majority of the people, and these youths face the dangers of violence, the radicalization, and illegal migration. I call upon the summit to adopt the Nouakchott Declaration because it calls for a sustainable education to support peace and security and to create jobs and to reduce unemployment and precarity. African youths need an effective educational and training system. They also, like other African citizens, need health systems that enable them to have access to good quality health care. This will enable them to deal with the arising health issues as witnessed in our continent, such as the smallpox, cholera, and the like. In this context, I would like to hail the work carried out by the Africa Disease Center in dealing with the sudden health crisis. I congratulate Dr. Jankaya for the pioneering work done in this regard. Today, I will present a detailed report on this issue. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in line with the Dhaka Declaration on Food Security and the following, we held two exceptional meetings to consolidate the agricultural systems. The first meeting was held in Nairobi in May 2024. It dealt with soil and the use of fertilizers. And in January 25, there was also a meeting in Kampala to develop flexible agricultural systems. A strategy and an action plan were adopted in order to promote a comprehensive agricultural development for the years starting 2026. I invite the summit to adopt the declaration and the action plan, and the same applies to the declaration of Nairobi. The aim is to promote investment and develop agricultural industries. The focus on industry requires that we need to have an energy that is sufficient and at an acceptable cost. We held in Dar es Salaam with Her Excellency Samia Suluhu, and in coordination with the African Development Bank and the World Bank, in last January we held the African Summit on Energy, in order to promote access to electricity for millions of Africans in sub-Saharan countries. There were a number of energy pledges. In this regard, I call for extending our congratulations to the President of the African Development Bank and the President of the World Bank for their efforts to, within the framework of this ambitious partnership, to support development efforts in the continent. Energy plays an important role in dealing with climate challenges. These climate challenges have a major impact on our countries. There is the issue of global warming, and we need to deploy more efforts for the energy transformation. On your behalf, during the 29th session of the multi-party meeting on climate change, COP29, held in Baku in 2024, we called for the need for the international community to fulfill its commitment and to assist us in dealing with the negative impact of climate change. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the achievement of the second action plan to implement Agenda 2063 is closely related to the coordination between the AU and the regional economic communities. For this reason, in our mid-year coordinating committee in Accra, we focused on integrating our national plans in continental programs to achieve African complementarity and to make its voice heard. This common voice will enable us to have the position that should enable us to effectively participate in the development of international agenda that should focus on sensitive African issues. Therefore, in all these events, we defended the rights of the African continent in its representation in the Security Council. We also called for a review of the international rules of governance. Our efforts were positively met, and there were clear commitments to work on them in the various meetings. But the effectiveness of the follow-up and the joint African work mean that we need to continue the structural transformation of our continent. You all know the questions raised by the structural transformation, such as the principle of alternation and how this is implemented, in addition to the distribution of positions. Because of the sensitiveness of this issue, we held an extraordinary meeting of the Executive Council, during which there was a decision to see how we can apply the principle of alternation to have a just alternation between the regions. In line with this reformist spirit, we worked on the review of the skills within the African Union. Ordinary meeting of the Executive Council was held in November 2024 to make a decision on the best ways to carry out this operation. Following extensive consultation, the Council identified solutions to this issue. It established a clear roadmap to continue this process. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in my initial speech, I emphasized the need to overcome the challenges, and I indicated that this could only be done by joint efforts on the basis of our common destiny. In order to achieve our noble objectives. Today, I reiterate the same issue as I hand over the chairmanship to His Excellency President João Lourenço, wishing him full success in the mission he is entrusted with. I express my readiness to continue with supporting him. I should seize this opportunity to extend my thanks to Musa Faki Mohammed, the chairperson of the African Union Commission. I hail his leadership skills. I thank him for his valuable support during my term. I extend my thanks to the members of the African Union Commission and the various organs of the organization. I'm very proud for being able to serve my African continent and to be its voice in international meetings. I end my term fully convinced of the capacity of our continent to achieve the objectives of Agenda 2063. I'm more determined to work more effectively in this regard. I reiterate my congratulations to President João Lourenço. I wish him full success. I wish our summit full success. Long live the African Union. Long live Africa, independent and prosperous. I thank you very much for your attention.
شكرا فخامة الرئيس على كلمتكم. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, now allow me to invite Yusuf Mundoha Asumani to Ethiopia Union, Dean of the African Ambassadors in Ethiopia, to introduce the new Bureau of the African Union Assembly for this session. Thank you,
Lance
en exercice et président de la République islamique de Excellence, Monsieur Abiy Ahmed, Premier ministre de la République fédérale démocratique, Excellence, Messieurs et Madame les chefs d'État de l'Union africaine, Excellence, Messieurs de l'État de la Palestine, Excellence, Madame la première vice-présidente de la République de Barbados, Excellence, secrétaire général des Nations Unies, Excellence, Monsieur Moussa Faki Mahamat, président de la Commission de l'Union africaine, Excellence, Monsieur le secrétaire général adjoint de la Ligue des États arabes, Excellence, Mesdames les chefs des délégations, Excellence, représentants,
Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Your Excellency, Deputy Secretary General of the Arab League of States, heads of delegations, Excellencies, ambassadors, permanent representatives and observers of states, Excellencies, commissioners, Excellencies, heads of African Union organs, invited guests, all protocols observed, Assalamu alaikum. I have the honor of introducing the Bureau of the Conference for 2025 pursuant to Article 16 of the Rules of Procedure of the Conference. The Bureau is as follows. Chair, the Republic of Angola, Southern Region. First Vice Chair, the Republic of Burundi, Central Region. Second Vice Chair, the Republic of Ghana, Western Region. Third Vice Chair, Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania, Eastern Region. Apologies. Rapporteur, the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, Northern Region, which is submitted for your approval. Thank you, Excellencies.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and congratulations for the new elected Bureau. I have the honor now to invite Excellency Mohammed Wil Sheikh Al Ghazwani, President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, to deliver his handover speech. Your Excellency, please.
Je voudrais remercier mes chers collègues.
I wish to thank my peers, heads of state and government, members of the Assembly, for having elected me at the head of the African Union as President for the period 2024-2025. Together, we have worked to advance the integration agenda on the continent. I wish to thank you for all the support and to thank you for the unflinching support that you gave me, contributing to the success of Mauritania and the entire continent in pursuing this lofty task. I will now call upon my brother, President João Lourenço, to hand over the baton, to him, and I wish him success in this endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. And now I have the honor to welcome His Excellency João Manuel Lourenço, President of the Republic of Angola, the new chairperson of the African Union, for the handover ceremony in the High Table. You are welcome, Your Excellency.
Okay, thank you.
Congratulations, Your Excellency. Allow me now to call His Excellency João Manuel Lourenço, President of the Republic of Angola, Chairperson of the African Union, to deliver his acceptance speech. Your Excellency. Your Excellency.
So much. His Majesty Mswati III from the Kingdom of Eswatini, Letsi III from the Kingdom of Lesotho, Your Excellency Mohamed Hood Ghazouani, President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania and the outgoing President of the African Union, Excellencies, Heads of States and Government, Your Excellency Abiy Ahmed Ali, Excellencies, representatives of heads of states and governments, Your